Hi, welcome back to the Let's Do More show. My name is Chris Ruffin. I'm the host of the show, and I'm excited to have you guys listening today. I've got a guest coming on by the name of Jordan Burgess, who him and I go way back through our addiction story and our recovery story and our journey. Today, he's got a company worth millions of dollars. He's about to launch a very successful app idea in the area of recovery and helping to shorten that gap between people getting to treatment centers and getting the help they need. And we're going to talk a lot about life in general, how to master success, how to master mindset, and what it looks like on the other side. All right, welcome back to the Let's Do More show. My name is Chris Ruffin. I'm the host of the show, and I'm really excited today for this episode. I've got a man on the in the video here and on the call. If you guys are hearing the recording or the video, that we go way back. We go way back to the beginning of our recoveries.
Yes, sir.
And we have kind of a crazy story. I promise you're not going to want to miss out on this story. I think out of all the episodes I've done so far, this is going to be the most impactful, the most real, the most vulnerable, transparent. And, hopefully those of you out there listening to the show, if you're stuck in your addiction, or maybe you have some things you can relate to here with Jordan today, Jordan Burgess is my guest, then we've done our job,
Yes,
and
sir.
as always, I want to continue to ask you folks to share these videos, get the podcast out there, because the more people that see these episodes, the more people we're going to help. And I think it's important that we are very loud about our recovery and our obstacles in life. This show is all about how to overcome those. So, Jordan, man, welcome to the show, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Truly blessed, bro.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy having you here right now. I've been leading up to this, I've been talking to different people, and like people ask, who's coming on next and stuff. I share with them just a little bit of the story of how we met. And I think that's a good place to start. Well, actually, we'll get to that in a little bit. What I want to start with, you know what? I think people want to hear this first.
Yes.
Let's do it. So back in 2017, Jordan and I were both arrested.
Yes, sir.
In direct relation to, substance use disorder and addiction. And I had been in jail for a couple of weeks. It was my first and only time, thank God. I learned a lot in there, especially that the food is not going to help you gain weight. I think I lost 35 pounds in like a month. It was crazy. I was more sucked up than I was out there using. And I went in there pretty bad. But we had this experience. And I'll just kind of share my side of things, and you can kind of elaborate or whatever too and put your sense in. But essentially, Jordan came in and he'd been arrested with similar stuff. And he was so when you're detoxing from any substance, you crave sugar like crazy.
Like for
the first couple of weeks, you have to have some sugar.
You have to have that type of that endorphin, that because your endorphins are unbalanced.
Yeah.
So that sugar kind of
helps a little bit, right?
Brings that balance.
Yeah. And so I know what's funny is about my side of the story is I had just gotten my commissary, which is when your friends or family can put money on your books and you can order, horrible food and candies at like 10 times the retail, right? That's a whole other conversation with jail reform. But I had just gotten some, right? So I had this sitting up there, and I think Jordan came up and asked me if he'd have a piece of candy, and I didn't want to share. I was still pretty stuck in, my ways and mine type attitude as we get as an addict. And so I said no, and he went to go get some anyways. So my first train of thought, I'd never been in jail before, so I didn't know. I went up to one of the COs, one of the security guards there, and said, "Hey, this guy is stealing some candy." And of course, they go up and like grab you, and I think they put you in solitary for a couple of days.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was in 28 days lockdown
for that one thing.
Yeah.
Oh my, dude, I remembered it being a couple of days. I thought,
no, it was 28 days.
Wow.
They gave me 28 days. And, what's, so beautiful about the situation is Chris and I had, we had a little conversation, before this, and we spoke about how all we would say to each other is we're the same person. Like we're part of the same team.
Yeah.
We're on the same team. Yeah. We're on the same team. And we spoke about this, over and over. And it was so beautiful. Because that's almost 10 years ago.
It's crazy. I remember like it was yesterday too.
Yes, and like it was yesterday. Me, being I can get what I want. Being that child and being selfish. Ready to take on whoever. Needed to be stopped and say, hey, So there was a guy, in there that, he, kind of ran things in there, and he sat us down and kind of like, told me I was in the wrong.
Because if I remember right, there was a few days of like contention and stuff, right? Like you were saying you wanted to kill me or whatever, which I didn't realize. Like doing what I did made me a snitch. I wasn't familiar with any of that. And really, I should have handled that differently and just understood like we are the same right away. But what ends up happening is like all these other guys kind of got behind me. We were like walking stuff around and you were still upset about it, and that's fine. I get where you were at. And then yeah, like this little Asian guy, don't remember his name, but he's like an OG with a rival gang, right? And he told us both, you're going to sit down at this table. We're not leaving until you guys like make amends and work it out. And that's kind of what we did. And for a brief moment, we both let our guards down and just realized like in that space, we were the same.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing with anyone listening to this is whether you're addicted to shopping, food, drugs, alcohol, porn, sex, whatever, it's all the same.
It's all the same.
And at the end of the road, we're all the same people. We're struggling with the same things. We're trying to fill up the same hole or deal with trauma we've had in our lives, right? And that's the beautiful thing about recovery is we get to do that. And so fast forward a few years later, I'm going into one of my support groups that I go to, and I walk in there and I see Jordan, right? And my first thought was like, crap, this is gonna be awkward maybe, but because when we ended after that little conversation, they basically locked you up, and I didn't know if it was 20 days. So I get out of jail and I continue on. What ended up happening is I was homeless at that point. My home was auctioned off on the front steps of the courthouse in foreclosure, and all my belongings inside this home, my dream home, were mostly put in a dumpster. My family got out a little bit of stuff, thank God they got some of my collectibles and some of my sentimental stuff. But yeah, my daughter's toys, all that stuff. That's what happened. And, so I got out, was homeless. I ended up going to a treatment center, and then I went to a sober living and really, kind of had to rebuild my entire life. Got remarried, became a dad to these awesome 3 stepkids that I have and my daughter as well. And it was just a complete rebuild. So I'm like cranking along in my sobriety, and then we were on a chance for a meeting. But what was cool is I think we gave a hug or something, right? Like,
yeah, the thing about it was, when you have that spirit in you, when you get that light inside of you, it don't matter. There's a lot of people that have done wrong to me. A lot of people have done wrong to a lot of us.
Right.
But I don't take it, and I don't hold grudges. Did I before when I was a child, and when I was in my youth, in my 20s, and was I a child and hold grudges and I'm gonna get at you? Yes.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
But it's like you get to a point in life where you realize, you understand, and like, look, like, who am I? Like, who am I? Why am I here?
Right.
Like, what steps? What? It has to be something bigger than just me just being here.
Yeah. I reflect quite frequently on the show and just in personal conversations. There's no way. There's no reason outside of what I choose to call God, my higher power, that I'm alive. I've been through so many things that should have killed me, and that's just the ones where I actually got caught or actually had an injury or died on near death experiences and things like that. Those are the ones where it made an impact. But there was how many thousands of other times I shouldn't have been around. I should have overdosed, or I should have this, that, crashed my car, whatever. And you think those things would matter, but it doesn't matter until you get to that point, right, where you have this self-reflection and you go, I got to look at something here. After the world's beat on you quite a bit and your addiction has beat on you quite a bit, everyone who's successful in sobriety and continues that path seems to have that moment where there was nobody to blame. There was no instance to blame. There was no person, place, or thing, or the courts or the office. Like, it all came down to where it's like, the only thing I can look at now is me and what's my role in this. And it sounds like that's the moment you had.
That's, especially, a little petty stuff that took place in the county.
Crazy.
That's petty. That's so petty. Me, have I always been affiliated with a lot of gang members? Yeah.
Yeah.
But am I a gang member? No.
Right.
Never have. That's not who I'm a man of God. That's my gang.
Yeah.
That's who, it takes a time, for those who are struggling, you gotta self-reflect is that key. Self-reflecting is a key to change. If you don't self-reflect and kind of, wish upon a star and look at yourself and say, okay, this is what I got and this is what I can do. This is my passion. Oh, I can do this. I can see this. Oh, wait, I was always good at this. Everybody has a professionality trait.
Right.
Everybody has that trait to be a professional at something, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's just all about the willpower. It's all about how are you gonna take that approach? Do you believe in yourself?
Right.
Because if you don't believe in yourself, you're definitely not going nowhere.
Yeah, mindset is a huge thing. I mean, we'll get into more of that. The reality is, when I first learned about mindset and like thinking positive. So before I went through that time in my life, even though I was in my addiction for 15 years, the first 10 of it, I still operated. I still did seminars. I still, coached people. I still did a lot of, what back then they called woo woo, like hippie dippy stuff, setting goals and visualizing what you want in life and all this stuff. Well, now we know with science that it's basically 100% true that our bodies and our lives follow what we say to ourselves in our brain and what we say out loud, right? And what we put in matters. And, so let's go back a little bit. I want to get an idea of your story from prior to all this, because in a lot of ways, for those of you listening, this is mine and Jordan's first real conversation away from that whole thing that happened. And the cool thing about the circle of recovery is here we are, almost 10 years later, right? Sitting down on a podcast, talking about, success and recovery and, trying to help out as many people as we can. And, it's just crazy to me the way it works. And people say, well, that's kind of odd. To me, it's not odd. It's God, honestly. Right. And there are no mistakes in his universe to me. And we both can look back at our stories and realize why things happen to us or where we're in certain places. I wish I could have that hindsight when I was in that addiction 15 years or earlier to be able to go, hey, you might be able to shortcut this by just, but it had to get bad before it would get good. Tell me let's talk about like childhood growing up and what did that look like for you? I mean, you're here from Utah or?
So I was born in Tacoma, Washington. Okay. So Seattle, basically. I was born in Lakewood, basically. And I lived there for 12 years. Parents were together for almost 20 years. I'm the baby of the family. Okay, my mom's, she's a beautiful soul. Yeah, my parents were going through a lot of, toxic relationship, and I could see it as a kid.
Right.
So then they got divorced. My mom met Dwight Coleman. He was my stepfather. He came into my life, and he had that father figure. But at the same time, him and my mom, had their differences, and they separated. My sister was out here in Utah, and I was 15. Sports was everything to me growing up as a kid. I mean, I didn't have time to do anything else but sports. And so I for sure that, I want to be professional in some type of sport, whatever it may be. And I knew it could happen. It's up to me. Yeah. It didn't. We moved out here and, I'll be honest with you, things just started happening for the worst. It took a wrong turn. I don't know if it was, if obviously, I saw my mom as being selfish, and because, I had a football coach, back in Ohio, Don Ross, he's always, he was like, this guy's, he's like, he can live with me until he's done with school, then he can move, because that was my freshman year.
Right.
And so he's like, then he can move. My mom's like, no, my baby's coming with me. So it was just me and my mom, my sister, taking off to Utah. My brother was in prison.
Wow.
In Ohio. And so it was just us. And, once we got here, it was hard. We had, burglaries weekends. Right. We were seeing a lot of stuff that we weren't used to. That growth was definitely needed. But was it seek? No.
Gotcha.
And, that's what ultimately led me, to a life of insurance. And doubt and constant doubt and getting in relationships with individuals who didn't believe in themselves and didn't believe in me or vice versa. I didn't believe in myself at a point, or they didn't believe in themselves, or I didn't believe in them, or it can go, either or. That whole time it took me down a dark road.
Oh. So you were 15 when you came out here. Mom, you and your sister come out basically, and Utah was completely foreign to you guys. You didn't have other family here. It was just like, we're just going to throw a dart at a map. And
well, my sister was here.
Your sister was already here. Okay. Your older one. Okay.
She was
gotcha.
doing track or doing something at UVU.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she was doing
so you had somebody here, but still going into a totally different place. So when was the first time that you had used a substance or alcohol? How old were you? And
so the funny thing about it is I had a friend when I moved out here. So I had an injury in my sophomore year in high school, my first year, and I got pain meds. But I didn't even like them. But then I had a friend who his father started giving to him. Yeah, and it was like, we were bored Friday nights, whenever, you know what I mean? And his father just, opened the door and hand us like 4 Lord's taps,
Here
and
you go, guys.
yeah, you know what I
Man,
mean? And I look back, I'm like, wow,
yeah,
what place was he in?
yeah. To be able to do that, right? Yeah,
To start young kids on a dark path.
yeah. I mean, no kids deserve that. That's for sure.
No.
And you didn't really know like you had any type of addictive personality or anything, right? Did you ever see it before you had used?
Oh, that's one thing that's I'm tell you. My brother and sister, they'll laugh with you. I would always, oh, I'm telling on you guys because they would smoke weed and stuff, and I'd be like, I'm telling on you guys because I just was
So
so
you're kind of
against it.
repelled from it,
I was
like,
so against it,
yeah,
but obviously I would
crazy.
never tell them. And that's why I always laugh. I would laugh because
We
I'm
have
like,
we have something similar there. I didn't start using till I was 26, and I had the same repulsive attitude towards drugs and alcohol. And I would even say that I judged a lot of people growing up that were doing that. I just saw it as like a waste of life. And I mean, I saw it like most people who don't have addiction saw it. I saw it as a moral failing. I saw it as something where, oh, these people could stop if they wanted to. It wasn't until I became addicted myself and tried that first substance and felt the way that it made me feel. I mean, do you remember how you felt after taking your first dose of something? Do you remember
oh
that relief that it
yeah,
gave?
oh man, it was because me, I had such to my family, I was supposed to accomplish the world.
Right.
Okay, and so I had an anger towards my mother, and so there was such a once a hit came, once if anything, and it's when I was like at 15, I was 16 when the pain pills started coming. It released all of that pressure. Like I didn't feel like I'm like okay, I don't have it released it all. I didn't have
No.
to, it was so beautiful. Um, because I look at addiction as beautiful because it makes you who you're supposed to become if you allow it.
It's like a what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a like like what happens in an Instapot. It's like a pressure cooker, right? And I talk about this all the time. Like the things that we do in recovery, maybe you go to meetings that support you, maybe you have other mentors in recovery, or you hang out with other recovered people, you figure out how to stay sober and have fun and do things. I mean, all these things, some people do them because they're court ordered and they have to get sober and they have to use these because that's one of the keys. But I think the big key is community. But for me, after a while, I started to realize that these are things I get to do. Like I get to go spend an hour a day at a recovery meeting and share some experience and some hope, or let people know how I'm doing. And it was such a big deal. And I remember, I like what you said there about it took off that pressure. I felt the same way.
Mm.
My first drug was marijuana. I had a business that failed unexpectedly for a lot of us that were involved, and I'm in my mentor's house with a bunch of us, kind of like throwing this potluck thing and deciding what we're going to do next. And everyone disappears to the garage, right? And this time I'm curious. I always knew what they were doing before, and I stayed away from it. But and everyone in this organization I was in thought I was just a Mormon guy, and so I didn't. Yeah, they never invited me, so I was kind of protected in a way
Got
because I
you.
was from Utah, and a lot of them weren't. And I go up to the garage, and they're all in a circle, passing around this tinfoil pipe with weed in it. And I remember that first hit that I took. I became the life of the party. I didn't have the pressure anymore. I felt comfortable in my own skin. I mean, it's the same thing all of us talk about as addicts. Is it's like we finally felt home. And fast forward now, almost 10 years later into recovery, I've now learned there's a lot other better, healthy ways to help you feel home. Right? So where did your addiction take you? Let's go through a little bit,
Oh,
before that jail experience and getting sober, and then we'll
yeah.
get into
It
that.
took
But
I had my brother with me, and my brother is he's actually doing some time in Arizona, because my sister's a doctor out there, and he went out to live with her, and then he got caught up in some things, but he has a personality that is very addictive from other people. People want to be around him.
right,
People, he wants to be around other people. So it made me be around other people and, be almost be there as his protector, and I felt like I was protecting him from something. And I know what it was. We all know what it is, but I
yeah,
was protecting him. And because I don't think I know if that protection wasn't there, I don't think he would be here right now. And so, um, right away, it hit off. So like I went to Weber so I went to Seattle. I was in Seattle and things was going right. I was getting ready for training camp at Weber. doing P90X. Same with my sister. My other sister lives in Seattle. So I have a sister who lives in Seattle. Sister lives in Arizona. My sister lives in Seattle. Lives here now in Utah. So I was doing all this stuff, getting ready, prepared for football. Came back here. My brother went to California, and he was basically left for dead.
Wow.
And what do they call it? Flood pipes, flood.
Oh wow.
Flood drains.
Was it like, did somebody like
try to kill him?
Try to kill him and actually put him inside of like a drainage pipe?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
was he getting involved with like the wrong crowd and like what was going on?
And that's what, like I told you, he attracts.
So he attracts people, but they were just the wrong people.
The wrong people, and that's something that he's always had an issue with. And that's why I feel like that protection, I had to protect him.
Yeah.
And so that protection ultimately led to me obviously getting high and partying,
getting involved with the same people.
When I'm the quiet guy, I don't really talk.
Yeah.
I really don't have.
But get a substance in you and you're probably the life of the party, right? A little bit or no?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, especially drink.
We're all like that.
Yeah, especially drink. I mean, if I like any like other stuff, like I'm more like to myself, and especially there's things that where that totally changed my mind, totally take my mind to a whole nother direction, and it's sickening, and it's so sickening. It really is. It's sickening that so basically that's being a babysitter led me to my initial consequence, because I look at it as a consequence, because we have a right from wrong. We have that free agency he gave us. So if you do the right, obviously it's called right for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do the bad, then that's on you. That's your consequences.
Right. And I think we all as humans, like, we all know. There's certain disorders you can have where you don't know what right or wrong is, and I feel for those people that have the mental side of it going. But for the most part, everybody knows what's right and wrong, and I think that's the other thing that substances do. Right? They allow us to turn off that part of our brain, it's not really about allowing us; they just turn it off.
They turn it off.
And then the decisions you make, it doesn't. This is why if you're listening to the show today and you're like a family member of someone who's in addiction and you can't understand why they're doing it to you, why they keep doing it themselves. That's a big part of it, is that they actually aren't able to even think of that. In the moment of being active in addiction, I couldn't think of my family. I couldn't think of my daughter. I couldn't think of, my wife when I was relapsing, or the family as a whole, or anything, or my business, nothing. Only one thing on my mind was, like, how do I get the next fix? How do I continue to feel that peace? And I chased that peace for 15 years. And then what ended up me in jail, by the way, I don't know if you ever knew the story. Some of the guys in jail were watching the TV because I was on the TV frequently for the next month.
Oh, wow.
So what happened is I was in a drug-induced psychosis, and I, for years, believed there's people following me, after me, gang stalking me, like all kinds of crap, right? And there were some real things that happened where people broke in my home. I didn't find out till later. It was some of my coworkers and employees who were just trying to mess with me.
Oh,
had kicked in the door and stuff like that. And to me, I'm in this mental state of like, someone's trying to kill me and my family, right?
Yeah.
Or the CIA's following me, or there's cameras in every wall. That's where I go, my addiction. And
exact same.
Yeah, so one night I completely hallucinated, not only audio but visual. Thought someone was in my house, grabbed a shotgun I had under my bed that I'd never touched for 5 years. A home defense shotgun I got simply for that. Had never touched it. But I've been in an active drug-induced psychosis for like 4 or 5 years now. And mine was actually coming from marijuana because I was smoking so much of it. But when you mixed out with stimulants and other things, it made it worse. I kept using different drugs to try to calm that down, and it just made it worse. That's the way that our thinking is so messed up. I thought more drugs would make it better. And that night I fired the shotgun in my house. I fired outside in the front yard, the backyard. All my neighbors are having dinner. I'm in a multi-million-dollar home at this point, my dream home, and I'm out, by my swimming pool firing off a shotgun. And I actually went to the neighbor's house with my hand and said, there's someone in my home, this is happening. Please call the police. I don't know who called them, whether it was a neighbor or, somebody who heard the gunshots, but yeah, they showed up with 42 units and police dogs, helicopters, the news showed up,
So that's why you were in jail at that
That's what got me in jail that time when we met. Yeah, that was the end of my addiction. That's what it looked like. It was tragic. But, that's also the beauty and the blessing is I wouldn't have found out about recovery if I wasn't in jail and going to the meetings in there and stuff like that. I'm still good friends with some of the people that brought him in there. So let's go back to you, though, for a minute. So you get deep in your addiction. You're involved in the wrong people now. What other consequences before that time? Were you in jail? I mean,
how? Like my childhood, juvenile, never been in no trouble. Anytime before that, never been. I was always a person that stayed to myself because
Right.
I knew I had big dreams, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to conquer my big dreams by being around a lot of people.
Right.
And so that's when I realized, okay, this is time for me to sit down and be to myself. But at the same time, when I split away, it took me to my addiction.
Right. So you just like a lot of us become isolators, right?
Yes.
And now we're using by ourselves, drinking by ourselves. And yeah, I can relate to that too. When I had a substantial amount of recovery and relapsed, that was definitely part of my story at that point because all the shame and guilt, right? And not wanting to be around people when I was in that state of mind. And then you get to a point where you can't even control that.
Can't even control it.
All the things that happened that night when I got arrested came back as far as like hallucinating and all that, and I guess there's some more lessons I had to learn. What happened to you? How did you get in recovery? Because I mean, we ran into each other in a meeting, right? Into a recovery meeting.
Yeah. So
what happened that got you into recovery?
Well, the Lord, totally. I mean, Jesus Christ, 100%.
Yeah.
Because I still had my, through my whole, addiction. I was still praying to Him.
Very cool.
I was still praying out to Him.
And was that instilled in you growing up?
Like, it's instilled in me.
Were you Christian or?
I'm Christian.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, and I was. Yeah, when we came out here, we were LDS.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I when I got here, I was like this. I knew. I don't want to get into that, but yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone has to choose. If you're listening to the show, you're like, I do talk a lot about God and higher power and all that kind of stuff. And you just understand from our perspective, and I think you're the same way. Neither of us care what you believe in. I think that all religions have a right place. I
Yes,
think
sir.
that all gods and all higher powers have a right place. And I think you just got to find what works for you.
Yes.
And if you're really finding what works for you, then you're not going to fight over it either. You know what I mean? If you're truly following in Christ's steps or whatever it is, that's one of the things I think of daily is like, how can I be a better person and try to do that? And no one's perfect. We all make mistakes and slide back in our old habits and behaviors sometimes. But, I agree with what you're saying there. I think the only thing that got me out of that mess and saved me throughout the others was God as well. There's some force behind it, I mean, I even tried to die and couldn't. So,
especially me because, so I was, they put me, it was a new program called Reach.
Okay.
It was Kevin, I forgot his last name, but he was a clinical director. And it was a program called Reach, and that program, it definitely was, it's a savior for me as well. I had a tough time there, but those tough times, because it was at the point where they were getting upset at me because like you have too much control over the guys,
right,
and we don't have control. I'm like, I'm not doing nothing. I'm just walking.
You still have that ability for people, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just walking and talking and showing that and showing the professional I am. I'm a professional. My addiction took me away from a professional.
Yeah,
that's all it is. I'm a professional, but my addiction took me away from it. So that
right.
like, they're seeing that, and the guys they want to be the same. They're not, it's and so I was like, okay, what do you want me to do? And so they were like, basically stop talking. And so basically I stopped talking for 6 months. And so
you were in that program that long? It was like a very extended program?
It was a great program. Yeah, I stopped talking for 6 months because they took you through the CBI and
right,
all the
CBT,
all that stuff. I can't remember, but they took you through all that, and so it was an amazing program. And so I stopped talking, and then they were like, okay, we need you to talk now. That's really how it was, and I'm not saying that that's some people it was because they're like, okay, the guys are changed, we need you talking. So I started talking, and I'm like, look, I'm here to recover. Right. I'm not here to make even friends because I'm here to fix myself. I have a problem, not you.
Yeah.
And that's something why, okay, I was at Reach. And then when I was at Reach, they took me, I had slipped up, messed around with, ran into the wrong woman, and slipped up. And then they sent me to Odyssey. And so I was the first person at Odyssey to finish that place in 30 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no one completely. Everyone was like, because I let them
Which really, I mean, you did it in 30 days, but there was like 6 months of back history of like working on yourself, right?
And that's why they were so, and that's what Odyssey was like. Look, we need people at bed for somebody who isn't severe.
At that point, you're thinking.
Well, at this point, I had a whole wardrobe of my clothes, everything. Right. Like I had it was like I was back to like I had like a lot of stuff. Like, you know, they're like, they seen my wardrobe, honestly, and they're like, "Why are you here?" You know what I mean? Just because of the clothes I had. Because most people walk them with a book bag and that's it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mine's with a lot of
Odyssey,
nice
for those
stuff.
of you that don't know, here in our state, there's a program called Odyssey House that really works a lot with people coming straight out of jail, people off the streets. You know, there's jokes in the recovery community of that being like the last stop, meaning like the last place you can go before you're just like giving up on it in a way. And it kind of is. And it's sad that that happens. One thing I wanted to reiterate that you said though is like, you had to be selfish about your recovery, right? And you had to express that to people that, look, I'm here to get help. For me, I'm not here to make friends. And I think that's a really important lesson to learn. A lot of people go to treatment and become friends with all these people in treatment, and then 80% of them are dead, you know, or using again. And it's hard because statistically, it's very difficult to make it out of this disease. But there are, you know, 70 plus million people in the country that have made it out. So, you know, there's ways to do it, but yeah, you do have to be that way, and you have to tell people.
We're walking testimonies, you mean? And
Yeah.
like I said, less than 10 years ago, we were both locked up. And look at us now.
Crazy.
You know?
I know.
And so, you know, it's like,
It's wild, dude.
It's, you know, we are walking testimonies, and you know, people really need to hold fast and really stay still. Just stay still and stop, you know, moving so fast and trying to, you know, take control of this, because we got to accept the things we can't change.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that we cannot change.
Right. And this disease never goes away.
It never goes away.
You know what I mean? We're always going to have it.
Always.
You just figure out ways to cope better, and instead of using a substance to feel that peace and calm, you know, you I wouldn't say have to, you get to go do other things, like whether it's counseling or CBT or, you know, some 12-step programs out there are effective, you know, as well. And having mentors in that. I mean, you've got to do things that are going to replace that. But yeah, we're definitely one of the few that made it out. And, you know, that's one of the reasons this show was started, was like, you know, I'm aware of how bad it is out there. We lose more of our brothers and sisters every day to this disease than almost any other disease out there on a daily basis. You know, now there's fentanyl being put in everything. And I mean, even weed has fentanyl laced in it now, they're finding. And, you know, it's scary. It's scary that, you know, that one time you use trying to escape to that peace may give you the ultimate permanent peace, which is death.
Well, no, it's funny you say that, because look, so my son, you know, he, you know, he's always he's in college. He goes to U, and sometimes he's mad at me, sometimes he's not. Depends how much money I give him. I'm talking about you, Sash.
I get that. Yeah,
you're gonna hear it. But yeah, I'm talking about you, but you know, but you know, he, you know, and you know, like I said, you know, Bill is everything to me, and you know, he started smoking weed, and I said, oh no, you're not. I said, I said, if you don't stop smoking weed, I will never give you a dime again. I said, even worse, I'll take you out of my will. I said, you will stop smoking weed. And that's how serious I'm about that, because I understand where it leads. And I'm not going to let my son go through something I went through.
You have to. I mean, it's hard. I've had two of my older kids have struggled with this disease too. And I saw it before they were using. There was character traits and things. I'm like, gosh, you know, it looks the same. Luckily, we always, as a family, would go and do recovery things. So I've had kids that have also struggled with addiction, and it's hard as a parent. You know, you really don't know what to do, and you don't know if putting them in treatment is the right decision. You don't know if you know, if you're enabling them. I mean, you stay up late at night. I have a stepdaughter who frequently ran away and things like that. It was hard to see her go through that, but ultimately, as a parent, you know, it came down to, you know, she has her own path, and I've got to let her walk that path. Yeah. Right. And again, do my best, like to help them understand. And luckily, fortunately, a lot of people say I'm grateful my kids never saw me drink or use when they get in recovery and have children. Mine did. And I want to express to those of you that are in that same spot that can also be a blessing. They had that blessing of seeing how their dad and stepdad acted and reacted to drugs and substances. And, you know, we've got the two younger ones that will probably never touch anything because of that, even though it's traumatic and it's hard and it's something I wish I could take back. There are always blessings in whatever we look at. In fact, that's something I want to chat with you about. I mean, you've gone through some pretty difficult stuff, a 6-month program, going to Odyssey House. I mean, these are not easy things to do. Those of you listening,
Reach was a year program.
A year. So
it was a year. Yeah, I was at that time. I was there for a year, so I was in the sober.
Gotcha.
Sober.
So yeah. So, and for those of you that don't know, going to treatment is no small feat. If you have a loved one who's going to treatment, please support them. Please. It is one of the most difficult things, one of the most beautiful things you can do, to lock yourself up and work on yourself, or have someone else lock you up for you. But you know, there's benefits that come out of it, but it's hard, right? Every day is so hard.
It's so, I mean,
you're away from your family, you're away from everything you love, you don't have your freedom, and you're kind of forced to look at what is inside of you that's making you turn to drugs and alcohol.
Exactly. And that's for, for the viewers in to hear that. They don't, you're by yourself. Nobody's going to come save you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're forced to look at yourself. That's a big deal.
Nobody's coming to save you.
Yeah.
And so, one thing you got to understand, to those viewers, it's, grab hold of yourself and really take a look of who you are and really take that self-reflect and realize, okay, and tell yourself, look, I might have to do a treatment for a year. So if you have to do that treatment for a year, put that time frame in your mind, like, okay, for next year, it's going to be hard for me.
Right.
And that's something that helped me a lot get through my addictions and my treatments. That is, okay, like with probation, okay, I know I'm going to take, drug tests for the next 2 years. That's on me. I do that to myself.
Yeah.
But I prepare my mind for it.
Right.
Before I kind of put that timeline out, that long timeline in my mind.
So it wasn't so overwhelming.
So it's not overwhelming when it happens. So it's like, okay, it's taking place. All right, my mind's already ready for it. Okay, let's go. Do it. Boom. On to next. Do it every day, piss test every week. On to next. So it's a process. And if you're not, ready for that process, you're not ready for recovery.
Yeah, and that's a big thing too. You definitely have to be ready. Nobody can force you to get sober.
No.
I've learned that lesson about myself and others. And while that might be sad and you really can't save anybody, part of recovery is selfish. So you really have to look at yourself. And even in a hard situation, if it's with a business partner or a spouse or a friend, and there's disagreement, what we have to do in recovery is we have to look at ourselves and go, okay, what's my side of the street? Where did I mess up in that? And sometimes that's hard because if you've had a lot of people do bad stuff to you that you can't really figure out why they did it, you still have to look inside and go, where was my part? Right. And it makes it hard. But in my experience, that's one of the easiest ways to clean up a mess and to make amends to somebody, get back on good is to say, look, I messed up, and I want to make this thing right. And sometimes you can, sometimes you can't.
Yeah. I liked how you put that. Okay. Where's my part in this?
Yeah.
Because everybody has a part. Everybody has a part, and like there's 3 sides to the story.
Yeah, there always is, right? Yeah, if not more, man.
You know what I mean? If not more, And so I like how you put that, a lot, and I'm definitely going to utilize that because that's like, okay, where's my part? Okay, what did I do? And what?
And it's the one thing that we can change, right? Like I can change my perception of a situation.
Yes, sir.
I can think positive about it or I can think negative about it. Both of them take energy. One of them is destructive, one is not. And so throughout my life, I really wanted to figure out, being an addict, in recovery, even my go-to is negative thinking. My go-to is pessimistic thinking. My go-to is everybody's out to get me. My go-to is I'm afraid of everything. And so like reading some of the books behind you, videos, going to seminars, working on myself, treatment programs, all these things, I was able to kind of shorten the curve a lot of times to where I don't jump right to the negative thing. It still happens, but you get a lot more benefit out of it. And it's also about what you're putting out there. So back at Odyssey House, so you get to Odyssey House, you graduate in a month. And then what happens after that? What does your life look like in recovery?
So then I go to, I don't know if you know him. He's a big bald guy. He has a bunch of sober homes.
You're talking, yes, I know who you're talking about. Troy Pop. Great guy.
Yeah.
There's a shout out for you, Troy. If you hear the podcast.
Yeah. Shout out to you, Troy. Yeah. You definitely, we didn't talk much, but I respected you. I seen your movement. And so shout out to you. Definitely. So I went to one of his, homes, and he was strict.
Yeah.
He's completely strict. You got to check in every night. And
he's one of us. I don't know how many multiple decades he has of sobriety, but
he's one of, he's one of us. And, he's somebody that, he definitely, helped. He shaped me in a way that I didn't know I was being shaped.
Right.
He was doing, it was little things that I was noticing. Okay, maybe do it like this instead of this, or maybe do this way or this way. And, it's funny. I'm not, I'm giving Troy some credit for that. Right. It's just because his program, how he runs that program.
Yeah. And I think it's like it's hard. It's the make your bed technique, right? It's one thing I'm pretty diligent on. I didn't really ever make my bed before recovery. Not like first thing in the morning. It was like maybe later when I got time or whatever, or maybe I'm not going to make it because I'm just going to mess it up again. But, I try to start every day with making my bed now. And what I've noticed is if the whole rest of the day goes to shit and nothing goes the way I was hoping it would, at least number one, I'm starting out with a win. And number two, I'm saying to myself that night, hey, at least I made my bed. I mean,
sir.
it makes a big difference. It really does.
No, I mean, self-confidence is so huge.
Yeah.
You have to believe in yourself. Because
Yep.
guess what? If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will.
Yeah. Yeah. I was told once, a really good thing I heard about self-confidence and self-esteem is you gain self-esteem by doing esteemable acts, right?
Okay.
And it's the best healthy way to create self-esteem. It's not ego, it's not cockiness, it's not pride. I feel good about myself because I'm doing good things. And I think that's what makes it really painful in our addictions, right? And with me painful in these relapses I had, I knew it was not right. I knew it was wrong. I knew what I needed to do, but I couldn't get myself to stop it because once I'd woken up that monster, it was there again.
It was there.
And the only thing that saved me was definitely God and spirituality. I know we both share that, which is huge.
Yes, sir.
So you stay in sober living for a little bit.
Yep.
And
With sober living, and and people like those viewers who who are struggling, you're gonna go through it.
Yeah.
You're gonna go through
part
it.
of the process.
It's
Yeah.
part of the process. You're gonna go through it. So don't think like, oh man, why? I mean, everybody, we all went through it, but
Yeah.
we all went through it. You're gonna go the days where you're like, I don't like, where and those days that you do feel like, oh my gosh, like I can't come back from this, or what did I do? Just know that you're gonna wake up tomorrow feeling different.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah. Pause. Right.
And so being with I was at the so I left Troy Pop,
Right.
left his place, and went to I got a room somewhere with a friend, got a room, shout out Daryl, he got me a room somewhere, and he I got the car, got everything ready, started working, just started really building myself for the position I'm in right now.
Right.
Because I knew I was like, okay, like, I'm in my 20s still, I'm 29, I was like, this is by 40, you're gonna be a millionaire. That's what you have written down.
Right.
And I look back, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I wrote that down. But went with I went the route the route of I can do whatever I want. I went that route, not I can do whatever, not by breaking the law or being a law-abiding citizen.
Right.
But
like you can live the life you want to live.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hit that confident.
Right.
Because it's the confident, you have stage of confidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because everybody has a confidence, okay, I got 9 to 5, whatever, I can prevail at 9 to 5 and be whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. But then there's another levels of confidence where it's like, no, I make the 9 to 5. I hire the people.
Yeah.
I have nobody tell me what to do. I bring the money. I bring this. I talk to the individuals. I bring the jobs. And so it's all about, really, like I said, the belief in yourself. And so, going through that whole stage, what I went through, and having, to, go through Troy Pop and sober livings, and having to
rebuild your whole life, right?
Rebuild my whole life. Having to, start working again, and, changing, because ultimately, like I said, I was preparing myself for who I'm supposed to be right now, today.
Yeah, and even writing down that goal you had, right? But another big part of the show isn't just the addiction and recovery stuff. I frequently interview entrepreneurs and people that have had to persevere in that space. But little did you know, when you wrote down that goal, it was actually sending something out there to God, the universe, whatever you believe in. And it was pulling it closer to you, to where now you can see that goal a lot clearer. And now you have a business, right? So now you own a moving company.
Now I have a business that's worth $2.2 million.
Yeah.
We're top 20 in the state of moving. You know what I mean? We have over 100 and something, 5-star reviews. It's called Canyon Movers. Shout out. My partner Dom Ketty. He, me and him, we both had that ambition in us.
Yeah.
And he's a football player. He's an athlete. And I knew I could count on him. Accountability is huge to me.
Yeah.
If I can't count on you, I won't be around you, because I got to be able to count on you. Say, hey, that job needs to get done. No questions to it. Whatever, we'll go through it. Just get the job done. And I knew he could come on and be a great partner.
Right.
And we could build a great business in less than 3 years.
And, that's cool.
And it's a blessing. It's total blessings from the Lord. We take it from the Lord, because we know it was Him.
Yeah.
We know it was Him that was pushing us I mean, I had to wake up at 5 every morning, you know,
Yeah.
even no matter how much sleep I got, because I have a business. I got to start
You
taking
got to be
calls.
accountable. You got
I
employees, you
got to
got
start taking
people.
calls,
Yeah.
because do I want to take calls right now? No, because it's my business, and I could hire somebody to do it. But at this time, it's what it's what's best that I need to take calls, and my partner takes calls as well, and because it's easy for me to sell. 2 years ago, it was. It's, I mean, getting
Yeah.
somebody's credit card is one of the hardest things you possibly can do on their phone.
Yeah, I know.
You know
Right?
that.
Yeah, and then once you do it, and part of it's hard because you don't think you can. It's like a
Yes.
brain thing. It's a perspective thing, and then once you do it, and the second time you do it, and the third time you do it, then it becomes easier. But I remember my first time doing some of those things too, and it was like, yeah, it was like very scary to like ask for a commitment.
Oh yes.
One thing I wanted to chat about real quick, and we'll move on, is you mentioned about like surrounding yourself with people who are accountable. And that's such a big thing, right?
Oh,
Like, I mean, the
huge.
people you hang around, the people you surround yourself with literally co-create the life that you have. And I think what's crazy is you had learned that through hanging out with the wrong people.
Mhm.
And so now in life, it's a little easier to like, so there's the blessing in that, right?
Sure.
Sure, you're hanging out with the wrong people and you're getting involved in things you didn't want to get involved in, and having a lot of bad things happen.
But I still learned.
But what you did do is you did learn what didn't work, and
Yes,
you did
sir.
learn who you don't want to be around now in sobriety. And now you can fill your life with good people. They're going to help you get to your goals.
Yeah.
And it works the same with anything we read, anything we watch, anything we listen to.
That's what and that's funny because me, my partner, he's been starting to respect me because he still listens to rap, and he's a man of God, but
Yeah.
he needs, he's on that fence.
Right.
It's like I tell him, you can't play the fence. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's
we're not
dangerous.
the Andrews game, we're not perfect, but at the same time, if we do something wrong, we have so much guilt. Even if
Yeah.
if I say a swear word, I have so much guilt that comes over me.
Yeah.
Because I'm a man of God. I'm the light for him,
Yeah.
And so, how am I supposed to be a light for him if I'm, being vulgar or being upset or trying to hurt people in
Yeah.
any type of way? That's the last thing I want to ever do
Yeah.
to anybody is hurt another person.
Right.
And anytime, you know what I mean? And so it's a lot of growth. And that's how I really been my whole life. Like I'm a person. I'm stayed myself.
Yeah.
Even when I was out there in the crowd, I still was the guy that was to myself. I might have had around me, but I was still by myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because and I didn't think I was better than nobody. And people, I can't tell you how bad people would talk about me.
Right.
Oh man.
I think the more that you're like one of those people that self-reflects and like realizes those things, the more you're going to get attacked. I mean, I've got another guy that's kind of a mentor of mine. He probably doesn't know he's my mentor, but I watched a lot of his videos and things like that. And he was chatting about when he first started into his like social media brand building and stuff. And he did something pretty wild to attract attention, but he got a lot of like bad comments, right? A lot of trolls and things like that on the internet. And, the way he looked at it was just that, people talking to me about me like that is better than no one talking, right? And just learning how to tune that out and know that you're doing things for the right reason is a big lesson. I'm sure we're gonna have some of that on this show, and that's fine too. But really, what's more important is who we reach and who we help.
And that's really what it is, and like, for those who are, once again, those who are out there, who are still in that process, look what the Lord can do for somebody in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Within just little 2 years and 7 months of my business, been open. We're top 20.
That's crazy.
And we have almost 100 and something 5-star reviews. And we have not one negative review, except we have one negative review from a lady because we were doing a job in Clearfield and her knife's got there was a bunch of thieves around,
Someone took her knife. Yeah.
So she left a bad review because she signed a waiver liability. And
Yeah.
everybody has to say, we're a business. You sign a waiver liability, obviously if we go in and when, the employees or somebody breaks something, obviously we're going to make a claim to our insurance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if it's like within less than $1,000, we'll just pay for it because we're not, the last thing we want to do is make insurance.
Oh yeah. You're already paying out for that.
Are paying, you know what I mean? But, with business, you guys, it took me, look how it's so simple with the Lord on your side. I mean, I can't even express it, even it's like Chris, this platform, you guys don't understand. This is going to be a huge, huge platform. I mean, this is just the beginning. This is beautiful, but this is going to be such a huge platform. You guys don't even understand. It's going to be something that people want or going to anticipate listening to, because being vulnerable is the most important, and that's what I feel. With you calling me on, okay, I got to bring my vulnerable side out.
Yeah.
And with writing my memoirs has definitely helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, those emotions that I'm writing.
Yeah, because right now you're writing like an autobiography, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So my memoir, going back to those emotions, or going back to those events, or plots or sets, whatever.
Right.
You get those emotions as well.
Yeah.
And so I would start to cry. I was writing, I would cry, and I would cry because I would feel, because I was talking about my childhood. And I would feel that pain I went through, and it would bring out the emotions. So it led this whole, conversation and podcast led perfectly, because, inside, my memoir, I'm speaking, I'm speaking really deep. And obviously, I'm not, I've had some ghostwriters call me, and I'm like, well, I'm on like page 80. And they're like, oh, well, never mind. Well, maybe we'll help you out. Well, I can still help you out and make it better. But I'm like, I'm a writer as well. If you knew, I'm a poet. But maybe, because I looked to see for some samples they were going for, but a lot of them were outrageous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're already pretty far along the path too. I think it's cool you're doing that. I mean, so like blessings in recovery, right? I mean, you're able to start this business. It's worth quite a bit now. You've got the customers raving about it. You're doing the right thing in recovery. You've got this memoir you're working on. I mean, so what are some of the things you would tell somebody, who's still stuck in their addiction? Like, what are a couple of takeaways they could take that might give them some hope from your perspective now?
One, I would say, is just to believe in yourself. That is one thing I would say, just believe in yourself. Second thing I would say is have the willpower. Have willpower. Have a sort of power, and find the Lord. Okay, find the Lord in any type of way possible. I mean, it doesn't matter if you have a Bible, if you got to go on your knees. Just two things, literally, is believe in yourself and find Jesus Christ.
Right.
Those are just two things right there. Just believe in yourself and find Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Because if those things happen, you'll see what has going on in my life and with Chris's life. You'll see your life the same. Yeah. Your reality, dream become reality.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, I mean, for me, I hear the same things. For me, turning my life over, which really is my thoughts and actions, right? Turning over my thoughts and actions to something outside of myself is one of the best things I can do, for a lot of reasons. When I first got in recovery and I heard this idea of like figuring out who your higher power was, figuring out how to connect, whether it was Christ or God or whatever else. And I was an atheist for 15 years.
Wow.
So when you met me in jail, I was like a devout atheist, dude.
Okay.
But in there, I read the Bible,
Mhm.
right? I read some other recovery books. I was introduced to meetings.
But you knew you were chosen.
It was also the first time I was sober in 15 years. And it was funny, when I became sober in jail and I detoxed in jail, all of a sudden this light came back to me, because I think those of us in recovery are the chosen ones, right? Yes. We're warriors. We're sent here to do this.
Yes.
And
you knew you were chosen.
Yeah, and so nothing in my life these days, it's funny, the more I take my hand off the steering wheel and rely on God for things and directing my life, the better off it goes. You know what I mean? Like the better I feel, the better it goes. And when I've got my hands on everything, I'm trying to control things. That's usually when they get messed up, or that's usually when things fall apart, or it's usually when I can't meet my own expectations, or whatever else.
Yes, sir.
But I think those are a really good piece of advice. You do have to, and maybe you can't find the willpower to like stop using, but you could find the willpower to figure out how to get help.
That's it. And with addiction, obviously another project we're starting.
Yeah, let's talk about it for a little bit. You got another project you're working on here with.
Yeah, we have another project that we're working on with the city, Erin Mendenhall, and she and Andrew Johnston, her senior advisor. We I invented Diction. It's obviously on my neck. And what Diction is it's an app will be on your phone, and it'll be your bridge between reality and treatment. And so basically it takes people how long, like it takes. I mean, you got to call John, you got to call Jim, you got to call.
Yeah, it takes months to get into treatment. And depending on what level you're at, if you're waiting for Odyssey House, I was trying to help a guy a few weeks ago that had to go there, and we ended up getting him somewhere else because he couldn't go there because of the wait. It's like when somebody wants help and needs help and they're an addict or an alcoholic, you have to strike really hot, really quick.
You do.
Because who knows how long it's going to be before this thing starts moving again.
Exactly.
And then you don't want to be sober anymore, and then you're back in your addiction. This is why people live in there for decades and die. And so I think it's a really cool idea to be able to bridge that gap. I mean, that's definitely a big thing.
Yes, perfect. And that's, we're just, bridging that gap, and we'll leave it at that for sure. It was, it's a supportive platform, and there's maybe we have maybe 8 competitors. Yeah. That's it.
Cool.
So, but we're building a team. I have a guy who builds Howie. He builds bots. He's like a bot guy.
Right.
It's all about he's one of our clients, and we use him a lot. He uses us a lot, and he builds bots. And I called Howie, and I'm like, hey, I need some bots built, for our platform. So we got that done, and then there was a ghostwriter who as well is going to be part of the team. That's going to be going. That's going to once the platform is built, the app's done, he's going to go through and kind of proof it. And he does side pieces, like side work. And I'm like, cool, if I'll try, we'll pay you $5,000 to do that.
That's cool. And the app is Diction, right?
It's called Diction, yeah.
Diction.
Yeah, it has.
Oh, you got a tattoo. That's what you're saying. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a plus. So we're taking,
if you're just listening, he has a tattoo of that on his upper neck here. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, we're taking the ad out of Addiction. So that's why we put the plus sign.
I like that.
Because we're taking that ad out and put the plus.
That's very cool.
Yes, so we felt, and we know that it's gonna help millions of people. And like I said, we're building a team of individuals who are professionals and who understand this is bigger than us.
Yeah.
Because we have a purpose, and our purpose is here to help.
I think what's cool, and you're absolutely right, what's cool about it is like there's these stages in recovery. The first stage is like, I can't stop. What am I going to do? Next stage is I'm going to seek some help to stop. And all you're focusing on is stopping. Next stage is like, I just want to stay sober. And you're taking it day by day, and we still take it day by day.
Yeah.
But then you get to a point where it's like, you realize the suffering and the pain you went through, and there's other people out there still doing that. And so it is about the bigger picture and about helping more people with your story. There's this adage that says something like, once you carry yourself out of the flames, it's like your obligation. And it's really not even an obligation. I would say it's a privilege to go back into the flames and carry other people out.
Mm.
And it's like one of the later stages in recovery, one of the last stages when you start really giving back and helping people, man. So I'm really excited about your idea. And, I think it's impressive. You're pitching the mayor on it already. And
yeah, that's what because I told the mayor, like, I told Andrew, I said, look, because we met with her advisor, she wasn't there. But, I told him, I said, look, addiction is going to be built with or without you. So I don't think, the mayor would want, a bunch of addiction posters up around and asking, what is this? Why was I not part of it?
Right.
And so, like I said, we're still waiting for feedback from them because they obviously want me hugely a part of it. They're just, getting their game plan together.
Yeah.
But, we know the funds is there, and that's why, and then, it's, we don't, Andrew, was speaking upon, maybe, we could, everybody we could charge, not for the homeless, but for those who are in recovery that has a $1 million home that's in the attic.
Right. Ways to give back that they can help out somebody who isn't able to afford it.
They can get on addiction as well, and they don't even got to tell their wife.
Right.
They can deal with a personal. I don't want to go deep into it like we were talking about, but yeah, they can. Addiction is such a beautiful supportive platform. It's gonna help millions of people across this world. We had Dr. Fila. He already wanted us to take it to India.
Nice.
And we were like, hold on, we can't. Hold on, hold on. And Cam Sutter is our developer.
Okay.
He's a code writer, and he's our developer, and he's he started 2 new projects, and so his time is very shortened.
Yeah.
But once I told him, like, hey, all I just need you to do is to build it, and the city said that they'll maintain it.
Right.
Because obviously they're going to want to implement things into it. And so,
and I think it's cool. It's like one of the keys to recovery and long-term recovery is like aftercare, right? So somebody can go to treatment, they can go to sober living, IOP, intensive outpatient, partial hospitalization type programs. But you can't stop there and hope your addiction is going to just stay asleep, And for me, when I relapsed after almost 5 years of recovery, it came down to the fact of partially COVID and some other things, but like I couldn't do a lot of things I was doing, a lot of the service work and going to meetings and things that were keeping me sober. Just off the table with that. And part of it was I let my life get so busy that I started not doing the things that helped in the beginning. So I think this idea you have for addiction in the app is going to be really cool to have someone having continuum of care. That's maybe something you want to bring up with Mayor as far as like a plug too, because that's proven. That's proven that works. Having the constant follow-up and support. And not everybody wants to go to meetings. Not everybody wants to, recover in certain ways.
No, because they don't want the most thing, and so we sat down. Like a lot of our clients are going to be, people who don't want to tell their spouse.
Yeah.
Who's going through it, does addiction, but they don't even want their spouse to know. But their spouse doesn't have to know. It's just strictly, it's it's strictly confident. You know what I mean? Like where there's no spoken,
right?
What you're doing or how you're doing it, it's all in. And I know the city's, is going to help us, get, that's why we're trying to build the right team so we can build the right way, so we can make sure the individuals stay active.
Yeah, very cool, man.
Stay active.
Well, it's awesome. Well, as we wrap up here, and come to an end on this show, I always like to leave people. We talked about a couple things, that you would recommend to people fighting addiction. Just on the entrepreneurship side for just a minute, how important part of it. So recovery is one thing, and I find that a lot of people who get recovered do start businesses. We don't really go with the current of things, right? We kind of, we're the black sheep. We're the ones that are like, no, I don't want to do a 9 to 5. I can hire those people.
Yes, sir.
And how much of what you learn through recovery, though, like what type of mindset do you feel like you need to have to be successful in business?
You have to have a mindset of knowing that every single day, regardless of what you went through or how you're feeling, that you're going to get up at 6 a.m, okay, and prepare yourself for what's to come.
Yeah, you got to do the grind.
You got to grind.
There's no shortcut.
There's no shortcut. Yeah. And that's what people like think they want it. They think it's going to happen so fast. And another thing was, a lot of people need to understand, in business, it doesn't. You're just not rich just right away.
Yeah.
You're just not. You just got to.
That's only the part people see.
That's the only part they see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like there's so much to it, and there's so much people. That's why you got to grind, because it's a 5 to 10 year grind to get that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to survive. Like our first 2 years, I said no. We're just gonna focus on the brand. That's all we're focusing on. Just a brand, building a brand.
Right.
Just building it and getting, reviews. That's it. We're focusing on that. And now it's just like, okay, now let's take more steps and,
Yeah, I agree. And part of our addictive personality, in the past, I was always looking for the shortcut, and there just isn't one. You got to do the hard work. You got to put the effort in, just like recovery, just like anything else.
You have to.
And lastly, last question I have for you, Jordan, before we wrap up is, if someone's going through a really hard time with anything, some major obstacle in life, maybe they have a loved one diagnosed with cancer themselves, or maybe they have to make some hard decisions on the direction where their life is going, what would you tell that person, knowing what you've overcame and being on the other side of things now? What would you tell that person that is kind of looking for some hope right now on how to get through something that seems, over unforeseeable, bigger than them?
Never give up. You can fall down 10 times, get up 11.
Right.
Never give up. Never give up, because your higher power, the Lord, our Lord Jesus Christ, He will always have your back. But the effort He sees you putting in, the effort He's going to reward you.
Yeah, I love that. Never give up. One of my first mentors told me, pay attention. He said, if you'll sit down, shut up and listen, pay attention and never quit, I'll teach you what I know. Yeah. And, it took me a lot of years of being an entrepreneur to figure out that lesson. But, well, man, cool, dude. It's been really cool, hearing the rest of your story and having you on the show. And again, if you guys need a great moving company, if you're looking for somebody there, and your movers, great company,
sure.
They're coming up in things and just really doing things right. And, as always, if you're out there struggling with anything you can't get through and you need some extra support, please pop onto our social media channels. You can find us on YouTube primarily at Let's Do More Podcast. You can watch all these podcasts, video of them, and see clips, and also contact us through that. And you can also find us on all your other social media platforms. All of them are either at Let's Do More.life or Let's Do More. And, again, Jordan, I really appreciate you just coming on and being vulnerable, man. That's what this whole thing is about, is being vulnerable and being brave enough to do that so that other people can. And people think vulnerability is like this weakness. It's not. It's actually a strength. And, in our world right now, we could all be a lot more vulnerable and help a lot more people out. And I see you as a person that's definitely doing that. So
Appreciate it, bud.
thanks for coming on, man.
No, appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. I feel blessed, and I feel honored, Chris. I'm just doing my part. That's it.
Yeah,
just doing my part. And
I love that.
you know what I mean? I don't think I'm better than nobody whatsoever. I'm lowest thing low. I'm just a grain of salt. I just have a part to play, and I'm gonna continue that part until I'm 6 feet deep. So
there you go.
Yeah,
you do your part.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll see you all on the next episode.
See you guys.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Let's Do More. I hope you found inspiration, hope, and some powerful takeaways to help you on your own journey of growth and resilience. Remember, no matter what you're facing, you have the strength to overcome it and the power to create positive change in your life and community. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, download, and review the podcast. It really helps us reach more people who need to hear these stories. And don't forget to follow us on social media and stay connected and be part of the Let's Do More community. You can find us on Facebook at Let's Do More Podcast, Instagram and TikTok at Let's Do More.life, X at Let's Do More Life, and our primary channel is on YouTube at Let's Do More. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, share your stories, or let us know what topics you'd like to hear about next. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, remember, let's keep pushing forward, inspiring each other, and doing more for ourselves and the world around us. Take care, and I'll see you on the next show.